So, I'm thinking about the type of people that may hear this conversation and different people that own real estate. And there's, people that may own a house that they live in and they're thinking about those things. If something were to happen to them, where would they want it to go? Is there any general differences in approach when you're advising, say, an investor that has multiple properties that they own, as opposed to someone that just maybe has the one property that they occupy?
Yes. So for investors, they really need to think about it more of a business planning and asset protection in terms of, basically how the properties are managed, such as having a holding company and having subs underneath it, for easier tax reporting, for instance. And they also need to think of maybe compartmentalizing the various properties into those sub entities to make sure that they have proper asset protection. When I'm talking about asset protection, I mean, if they're renting properties out to tenants and God forbid something were to happen on the property, they need to be mindful of what type of insurance they carry for these properties in this essentially business operation. And two, to make sure that the properties are separated. So if something happens on one property, it doesn't actually expose their equity interest in the other properties. And so there's proper, essentially, business management or business planning and asset protection. They also need to make sure that they have proper documents in place if they have partners. So if there are multiple investors, what happens in the event one investor passes away, declares bankruptcy, or something happens to them, or wants to sell their interest? They need to make sure they have rules of the road, such as an operating agreement or shareholder agreement, depending on what type of company. You don't have those considerations when you're talking about an individual that owns their own property. That person might need to be more mindful of certain restrictions they may have on the transfer of their homestead if they're married or they have minor children and things of that nature. They need to be mindful of, certain protections they have under the law, for instance, that their homestead is protected from all creditors except for their mortgage, a contractor they don't pay on the property, or their real estate taxes. And so they need to be mindful of those protections and considerations as well.
Right.